This is a mud shrimp. He spends most of his life underground digging tunnels, and they have the next 100 days to construct a colony. But these shrimp that I have were actually going to die. That's because they came from my local fishing store where they were going to be used as bait. So I bought 2 containers of shrimp. My goal here is to save these shrimp, let them create a colony they once had, and see how cool of a pet they can be. Alright guys, so we got our 2 ghost shrimp here. Let's take a look inside. Oh my god. Oh my! They're all moving a lot. That's a good sign to me. I got this little tray so we can slowly acclimate them. We're just gonna go ahead and put these guys inside of here. Oh my god. These things are so weird. Since these ghost shrimp have been out of water for quite a while, I acclimated them with the tank water. And after 20 minutes of acclimating, they're ready to go inside of the tank. The first thing on their minds were to dig. You can see that this one even started its burrow. All 30 shrimp will be released into this dirt wall. Right off the bat, most of them found a spot to start digging, but others even had to fight for it. All the mud was being shoveled out of the way, and some even just dove straight inside of the mud. It took them about 20 minutes to finally dig below the surface. While most shrimp were just starting their tunnels, I wouldn't expect to see any progress today, so I let them dig for the next 24 hours. But on day 2, we find our first digger. Inside the shrimp's burrow, he picked up a pile of dirt. What we're gonna watch him make is a construction of his tunnel. What we see him doing here is called patchwork. This is the beginning stage of creating his tunnel, but in this case, I guess he wanted to fill in a hole, so he patched it with some mud. Although these tunnels are very interesting, you might be curious on how these tunnels don't collapse. But since ghost shrimps are made for this lifestyle, they know exactly what to do. First, they pick up some mud. Then they release a mucus inside of it to make it stick together. And here you can see clumps of the sticky sand that fell down. But anyways, once they take that pile of dirt, they go ahead and bring it somewhere and stick it to the wall. And just like putty, it magically just sticks. So they can basically turn loose sand into a clump of mud that they can mold into a tunnel. So far, they've only made a few tunnels, so I decided to let them dig for another 2 more days, and this is what we come back to. And on day 4, we see a lot of changes. You can tell by the mounds of dirt left behind by the shrimp that they have been digging. And it's pretty cool because they can create the same exact mounds of dirt as in the wild. But this happens because as they are building their tunnels, the excess mud has to go somewhere, so they just discard it on the surface level. But the new tunnels that they've made in the past 48 hours were actually quite impressive. These 2 tunnels right here were the most visible out of all the ones that I saw. I even managed to find the start of a pregnant shrimp's hole. This one's hole was pretty big. Honestly, it was kind of gaping. I also saw another shrimp with a gigantic claw. This just indicates that it is a male. In fact, all males developed one oversized claw for fighting or display, while females keep both claws smaller. But one of the coolest part about these ghost shrimp is the special abilities they have. They have numerous abilities, but the first one that I've noticed is the backflip maneuver. They use this ability whenever they need to change directions. But in order to do a flip, they actually create a small opening at every corner to give them space to flip around. This just allows them to go any direction at any time in order to make their tunnels faster. So currently, it's still day 4 and there's lots of interesting events that will happen later in the video. But I've decided to let them dig for the next 2 weeks. And what I kind of expected from them was to have tunnels everywhere, but instead I saw something that was actually quite concerning. Because after that time period, the tunnels actually started to collapse. The tunnels that we've seen before now got filled up with sand. I had a few speculations on what might have caused this. My first one was that they were getting scared of the light that was coming from my room. Since these shrimp live in pitch black in the wild, they probably get scared of the light, causing them to move to the middle of the sand or on the other side of the wall, which actually shows a whole new layout other than the front, which I'll get to later in the video. But for now, I'm actually going to get started on building this little curtain to block out the light. Now let me present to you the shrimp curtain. So I think this will be very important, so it'll encourage them to start digging on this side of the glass. So in that case, I'm gonna let them dig for 1 more week to see if that helps at all. But while we're waiting, we're actually gonna go ahead and feed these guys because, you know, they're probably hungry. And since it's been about 18 days, you might be wondering, why haven't I been feeding them this whole entire time? That's because they're actually able to eat multiple types of food. And one of them is part of the reason why they dig so much. detritus. Detritus is organic particles embedded in the substrate, like decaying plant and animal matter. That's also the reason why I dug up their substrate from their actual habitat in the marshland. So this is probably why they never really stopped burrowing and reworking the mud. Here you can see I got a clip of a shrimp actually eating a decaying stick. Pretty cool, but he definitely got some deep throating experience with that stick. But they can also feed on biofilm, bacteria, and microalgae that grow in the mud. But luckily, I'm gonna give these guys a little treat: phytoplankton. Ghost shrimp are filter feeders as well. I'm basically just gonna sprinkle it on top of their holes, and eventually they should pull in the phytoplanktons all the way inside of their hole. And to actually pull fresh water into the burrow, they actually use their back fins right here to pump fresh water in. And you can even see right here that the water is siphoning out. Usually they'll have two entrances for water to go in and another one to go out. This is what it looks like when they're pushing the water out. So it's now time to see if this whole curtain thing even worked. It has been a week later and it actually marks the first month of this whole project. There has been a lot of brand new holes that have been made, and in some areas way more than others, which kind of makes you think if multiple shrimps can work on the same burrow at once. Here you can see two shrimps that are about to meet ends. Now, will they be friendly and work on the same hole, or will they battle? Well, I think this one shrimp had enough of this other shrimp's BS and just totally raged. You can see that this top one just clamped down on him. Not even joking, he held him for 3 minutes straight and my camera died. I actually witnessed multiple fights, but this one right here was actually kinda weird. The shrimp on the left started doing this weird thing. I don't even know if this was fighting or not, maybe it is, but it was just a whole bunch of like slapping. If anyone knows what they're doing, leave a comment down below, but what I concluded was that they're definitely aggressive towards each other. So over this whole month, I've actually discovered that they don't actually stay in their holes their whole life. And I know this because I find them outside of their hole, in the bottom of the tank. Oh my god guys, I just found the biggest shrimp. He actually escaped. So to put him back in his prison cell, I scooped him up and put him on top of the sand. There he go! Eventually, he found his hole and crawled back inside. And every now and then, I actually see him poke his body outside of the hole. It was actually pretty common for me to find these shrimp outside of their mud wall. But something weird and kinda gross that I realized about them was that they were soft. Their shells are very squishy and kind of weak. You might think that this is a weakness, but it's actually another superpower for living in their environment. The first reason is for their mobility. Their soft exoskeleton makes them extremely flexible and mobile in soft mud, which allows them to squeeze through tight areas in order to work on their burrow. I let them dig for a couple more weeks and this is what we come back to. On day 40, there was lots of new tunnels being made. The tunnels we've seen in the past has also transformed into way bigger tunnels. But with just a little time, new pathways to different areas began to appear. Brand new layouts have been formed, and like I said before, on the back of the glass lies a whole new layout of tunnels. Seeing these holes also remind me of ant colonies, although ant and shrimp behaviors are much different, as shrimp prefer being alone in their burrow, or else they will literally start fighting, while ants have teamwork and can work on the same hole at once. Although they both make tunnels and burrow, these shrimp have more obstacles to deal with every day, like low tide, because at low tide they don't have any access to any fresh oxygenated water. So how do they deal with low tide? Well, over the years they had to adapt in order to survive in these conditions. There's been reports of them surviving up to 6 days. But in order to do such a thing, it's actually thanks to their low energy lifestyle. When the shrimp sense a low tide coming, they actually slow down and not move at all. They do this to conserve all the oxygen they can get to survive this time period. As a few more weeks goes by, we finally reach day 60. This is somewhat gave them enough time to explore most of the tank, which leads me to my next question: how far down do they dig? Well, right off the bat, we can see their favorite spot is about a foot below the surface. That's because this area has the most amount of food. But as we go a little deeper, we notice that not many shrimp dig as far down. And why is this? That's because in mudflats, the deeper you go, the harder the substrate. The shrimp's soft body is only optimized for digging in soft, sandy areas, and not for forcing through hard-packed layers. As I mentioned before, I still have this whole other side of my tank with a new layout. And on this side, I can actually get a view on the biggest shrimp in the tank, which I decided to name Shrimpington. I also want you guys to name this shrimp. This guy has been working on the same certain burrow that we've been watching since the beginning. And you've also might have been wondering, how do I even keep these guys alive as my pets? Well, the important part is having the temperature at 678. I also have the tank hooked up to this canister filter, and that's really it besides water changes and feeding. And by day 80, these shrimps grew from nothing into a tank full of burrows that these shrimp once had in the wild. They were about to be used as bait and die and be brutally molested by a fish. Although it's near day 100, which has a very special surprise, all I ask from you guys that have stayed this long is to leave a sub. It definitely supports me making these videos possible. This whole shrimp colony tank was just a random idea I came up with. I never saw anyone else making the same video, nor did I even think this was going to work. But anyways, time for the grand finale, day 100. There has been a lot of progress that has been made, but if you remember in the beginning of the video, there was this pregnant shrimp. Since it's been 100 days, it's about time for them to hatch. It will take multiple months, but the temperature has to be on the warmer side. So sometime in the future, we'll see a thriving shrimp colony.